Welcome to the Audacity, the podcast by women, for women, and anyone else brave enough to listen. Thank you all for being here. We want to give a very special shout out to our brand new TVIP members, Maribel and Jenny. Welcome, y'all.
Hi, Jenny. Hi, Maribel.
We are so excited that our Patreon community continues growing and thriving. I was just in there the other day to respond to some of y'all's comments, and I could not because Gwen and Sovereign had already have been killing it in there, taking care of business. So I hope y'all know that we are all just literally eager for your input. We're eager to interact with all of our Patreon subscribers. And it's just been wonderful to watch that community grow and flourish. And if y'all don't know me, my name is Lisa, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, the Sovereign Woman.
Hi.
And Gwen.
Howdy, y'all.
And we certainly have a lot to cover today, but not before I tell y'all to please like, share, subscribe on all of our platforms. We have an Instagram now. We have a TikTok now. The Instagram is run by Gwen. I run the TikTok. Sovereign Woman's in the Patreon. So we are kind of all over the place. We're in the social medias. We have a YouTube as well where you can get the video version of this podcast. So please make sure you go over there and subscribe. It really helps us out if y'all promote all the different platforms. Everything goes a long way. So
also commenting boosts us up.
It does. Leave your comments. We are there to respond. So we're waiting.
Thank y'all so much.
And I hate to break in here really quick, everyone, but I just wanted to congratulate you all on 100,000 downloads from the podcasts. Which we reached last week, and 80,000 YouTube views, which we've only been video for 3 months now. So congratulations to you and all the listeners. Thank you all for tuning in and watching.
Thank you guys.
Which is hard to do as a small independent podcast such as this.
That
so
is
congratulations to you and your listeners. We don't have a big team here. It's just you guys. So
just
It's
us.
just us.
Yeah, and
Thanks,
special
y'all.
shout out to our producer. That's
Yes,
Rai. You guys are hearing.
We love Rai.
Yes, he produces the show, and Siren Sound for anyone else interested in show production. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, anything like that, hit us up. We'll point you in the right direction.
Right.
There's a lot to cover today, and so we have decided to sort of flip our segments time-wise. We're going to have a little bit longer of a tea time. We're going to have a little bit shorter of a main segment, but we're here to cover all the current events. We definitely don't want to stay silent about anything, and there's been a lot going on. And so we're going to let Gwen take the lead on this one. She's been very involved. She's been boots on the ground. So Gwen, can you enlighten us on what's been going on?
Of course. So for our international listeners, I just wanted to speak to y'all directly to kind of maybe clarify some things that maybe your media is not covering. But it's a very tumultuous time right now for us because essentially our government is making toilet paper out of our Constitution. This has very much been an overreach of the executive branch by far, and it's just never been more clear than these past events. So, for instance, you need the state government's okay before you send the National Guard. The National Guard is not something that the federal government can just descend upon. So the fact that Trump they did not ask for permission to send the National Guard, but they sent them anyway is red flag.
Mm-hmm.
And what was this, why were they even worried about, what was the thing that started it?
Yes, we've been protesting. So, yes, I should probably cover that first. So, what started in LA was they're calling them riots. It's not a riot, it's a protest, first of all. And that is enshrined in our Constitution to be able to protest. And that is something that is unique to us as Americans because our Constitution gives us this right to have freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and freedom to protest, freedom of assembly, to be able to express our grievances towards our government. And
it's part of democracy, right?
This is democracy.
The voice of the people.
This is, Vox Populi. But anyways, so basically ICE has been raiding Home Depots, has been raiding schools, has been raiding places where people are legally allowed to work.
Soccer matches.
And
also,
soccer matches.
They're doing security at soccer
and factories where
now.
they're employed. But yes, so basically they wanted to come after the illegal immigrants, which if that's what they were doing and they had already had their due process and they were tried and convicted as criminals and they were those were the people being deported, I don't think anybody would be as mad and upset and up in arms as they are right now. But those are not the people that they're coming for. They're coming for the ones that are legally here with a visa. A visa is a permit that grants you basically all the same civil rights that we have as Americans. So you used to have the right to work, you have the right to have a bank account, you have the right to express yourself.
I was going to say too that like, isn't anyone that's on like American soil, don't they have a right to due process also as per our Constitution?
Yes. And so when you're here, the Constitution says like all peoples have the right to due process. It doesn't specify citizen. It says peoples, and you can't even determine if they're here illegally without the due process.
Exactly.
So that's also what they're doing. They're bypassing that essential part of our Constitution that allows us to have due process and allows us to have legal representation, which is enshrined in our 4th and 5th Amendment. And so they're just basically kidnapping people off the streets when they don't have like legal identification, like they don't have like their badge number or their names, so you can't even find them. You don't even know if they're actually law enforcement or not. They're just people that are snatching brown people just based off the fact that they're brown, based off the fact that they maybe don't speak English as their first language. And that's all that they're going off of. They're not going off the fact that if you have a visa or if you're a citizen or not. It's just that's what they're essentially doing. And some people will try to spin this as being hyperbolic, but you just look at some of these videos and you just look at even the live events of some of these protests and you will actually see them doing that. And it's becoming hard to defend that, I'm sure, even for the right-wing media, although they'll spin it how they'll spin it. But yeah, and so that's just an extreme overreach of the executive branch, overriding Congress and overriding the judicial process. And it's just, this is bad. This is fascism. I don't know how else to make that more clear than it is now. And I wanted to take this time on our podcast to denounce fascism and tell our audience that, you know, all this that's happening is not normal. This is not right. And this is extreme to the extreme. And I'm so angry by the fact that it's taken now to get to this point before people started actually paying attention and listening to the ones who have been raising red flags for the past like 4 years that if Trump comes in office again for the second term, this is what'll happen. And there were signs, and you can't even, they had signs that said mass deportation now. And so you can't even say you got
There's
rigged.
quotas now that they have to meet, something like 3,000 people a month, which is, that's how people are going to get literally snatched off the street. And this is this parallels Nazi Germany almost exactly. Like this is how it all started.
And if it was about, doing things the right way, they would not be kidnapping people from their court migration hearings. So in Houston right now, there are people that are being taken away after they show up to their court dates for their migration hearings, and ICE is in the hallway waiting for them. And they're just taking them and putting them in unmarked vans, and their loved ones don't even know where they are. They don't know what's happening. And imagine like if English wasn't your first language and maybe you don't speak it that well at all and you are just being taken and you don't know what's happening. Imagine how scary that is.
Terrifying.
No,
that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Like imagine if you were an American and you had a visa to go work somewhere, I don't know, let's say France. Okay. And you don't speak French. You have no idea what's going on. You have no idea of their legal process or if you get a legal process. And there are just these people that are speaking a language that you don't understand and putting you in an unmarked van, and you don't have a way to call on your cell phone because they took your cell phone away. So you don't have a way to like contact your embassy or contact your loved ones and tell them what's going on. That's what's happening to these people here. And that's scary. And also that's fucking insane because this is Texas. This is Texas. Like Texas was a part of Mexico for the longest time. These people have been here. So it's like they did not hop the border hopped them. And so it's crazy.
Right.
That's just where I stand on that. And you know what? Even if the ones that came here illegally, I don't care. I'm just going to let that out right now. I don't care. You came here because you wanted a better life for your family.
Absolutely.
You wanted to provide for your family. And maybe you were fleeing something that I will never understand as a white woman in America. So the fact that you wanted to be here and you wanted to be a contributing member of society, and you have what's called a tax identification number, which allows you to do so, to pay your taxes and your dues. And you don't even qualify for like some of the things.
I was going to say, you don't qualify for the things your taxes pay for.
You don't qualify for benefits. You don't qualify for SNAP, but you're still working so hard to provide for your family. That automatically just like, I don't care. Like you're here and I'm happy that you're here and I'm happy that you want to work and I'm happy that you want to contribute.
And if we don't want criminals in this country, we should start at the top.
Literally.
Right. It's those pinches pendejadas in La Casa Blanca that we should be worried about. Okay. Like I just wanted to air that out.
We have a 34-time felon. A 34-time convicted felon running this country, calling other people criminals, which is just, I mean,
And
the
they want to
cherry
say
on
that
top.
the ones that hop the border are criminals just for the fact that they hop the border. But actually, what that amounts to is a civil offense. And majority of them come here legally through the visa process. And
not to
maybe
mention, his parents hopped off a damn boat. His parents hopped off a boat.
That's true. And so,
illegally.
yeah.
Right.
His wife, too.
Imagine how we all feel, because some of us, we joke, but then we're kind of serious about how we wish we could just leave the U.S. and leave all of this BS behind. And let's just say we did. Like Gwen was saying, we did go to Mexico, or we went to Tokyo. I don't know, I'm just naming some places, France or whatever. And we are established there. We have our, whatever, I don't know if they call it tax ID number there or not, or whatever they call it, but we have that. We're working. And one day we're like leaving the spa, and some people just roll up on us and say, y'all going back to the U.S. And we escaped the U.S. because it turned into a dictatorship and we don't want to be there anymore. So that's how I see the immigrants. I don't see them coming over here. And I'm not saying that all of them are perfect angels. I just believe that the vast majority of them are not bothering anybody. They came to get a better life. They work. They pay taxes. They send their kids to school, like
and that's good enough
everybody
for me.
else, and that's it. And that's good enough for me, right? It's like I don't
even care.
I was always against this whole deport the immigrants. I've always been against that.
Also, you can't be illegal on a land that was taken. Like, I don't know if y'all saw that video.
That's the whole thing. Sorry, I speak like a gringa, but I do speak Spanish because
I love it.
It's like when you live in Texas, Spanish is taught to you as a second language, and you take that all throughout high school, all throughout middle school, and so that's what I did. So I do speak some Spanish, and even though it's not perfect, I'm there. But anyways, so yeah, like even if you hop this border illegally, quote unquote, like I don't give a fuck. You're fleeing from something I will never understand, because in Mexico and in these other places, they're fleeing from cartel violence, they're fleeing from political violence, and maybe their economy has gone down the toilet. So they want to be able to, protect their families, and that's good enough for me. Honestly, I don't care.
Absolutely.
And you can tell that a lot of them are hardworking people, as evidenced by Trump being like, oh, there's going to be changes because apparently we're deporting all the workers that my rich friends need in order to meet their quotas.
Stupid.
Like, you're so dumb.
And people want to say, like, who's going to pick your groceries? Who's going to work your fields and the farms? And it's like, it's not just limited to them. These are the people that also care for our elderly. These are the people that are also within our nursing homes and within our medical care system. They're come here on a working visa, to work in our medical field. And so, like, those are also the people that are being targeted that I don't think people realize. So yeah, like you will also have less staff working to take care of your elderly moms and dads and mothers-in-laws and all these people that you care about. And so it does affect you. It affects all of us. Like all of us should be caring right now about this.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah. And that's just something I wanted to take this time to say in our tea time.
I agree.
I was going to say, there's so much more to cover, right? I mean, we've had politically motivated assassinations.
So yes, there was that also should be a point of radicalization. During the protest, while everybody was distracted protesting, a radical MAGA extremist knocked on the door of a Minnesota lawmaker and shot her point blank. And it's just coupled by the fact that, ICE members are also impersonating law enforcement. I mean, these people, even these MAGA supporters are impersonating law enforcement, impersonating as ICE to go around
their
and
wet
hurt.
dream. Yeah.
And they're going around and hurting women. So they're going around here dressing up as ICE to attack these migrant women and raping them. And that's because they can just do that, because there's nothing from our leaders saying that ICE has to identify themselves. So they can just be anybody. And you can order this gear off of Amazon. I checked.
That is so terrible.
There is ICE gear you can get on Amazon. That's what they're doing. I swear to God.
Disgusting.
I wrote a bunch of notes because I didn't want to miss a thing, because we need to talk about this. This is terrifying. This is fascism as the actual definition of it.
The textbook definition.
Yes, the textbook definition, and especially because they're executing Democratic lawmakers and Democrats, because he had a list. This assassinator had a list of Democrats that were either pro-abortion or pro-liberal policy. So Tim Walz was on that list. Ilhan Omar was on that list.
Wow.
So just that fact alone, and also that is probably not going to be an isolated incident. If I had to guess, there's more to come, and I'm so terrified by that. I am scared for my country. Yeah, there are a lot of Americans who share that sentiment with us, and that's why there were American flags at this protest, because the rightoids and the MAGA extremists do not own that flag. That is our flag too. If you're an American, you should be outraged by the fact that they're taking this flag and bastardizing it to mean a national, to be all for the country, but then you don't know your history and know that this place was founded on immigrants, founded on the backs of slaves and on immigrants that we brought here.
Yep.
And so it's just
literally.
And also, like, what I also want to talk about is the fact that they deployed the Marines, which if you don't know anything about the Marines, all you need to know is that they are trained to handle foreign conflict in foreign countries. And the fact that they deployed those people here to handle a protest, something we are legally allowed to do, should be sending a very clear message that this is an extreme overreach by far of our executive branch of our government. And that is scary. That should be terrifying. They called the Marines to the United States to turn them on their own people.
Don't forget, this was in Project 2025.
Was it? The Marines being called?
Well, martial
law.
Yeah. What Trump was saying that for protests, they were going to give immunity to law enforcement. So to me, they're considered law enforcement. You know, if they were deployed for that reason, like to me, that's the whole thing. Like they're allowing them to come.
That's terrible.
They're allowing them to come and stop peaceful protesting. He bragged about it. He bragged about it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Trump.
Yeah, and he said anyone protesting can be arrested, not violently protesting.
I knew about that too.
Just protesting.
Yeah, they can be arrested, and he was going to give them immunity. That's what he said.
Which is also whack because that is also a protection granted to us by the Constitution. So
they don't care about it.
That's what I'm saying.
If you leave it up to them, they're trying to get rid of it.
He is actively overriding Congress, which is also an extreme violation of our Constitution, because the reason why we have a Constitution is to make sure we never have a king. And that's why this was called the No Kings protest, because essentially what Trump is doing, he's acting like a king by all these executive orders that are bypassing Congress and bypassing the Supreme Court. And he's basically saying, I don't have to bow down to anyone. This is going to be a lawless wasteland under me. And that's what we're protesting. But I'm also protesting because of the fact that they're taking people that I care about. So this is fucked up.
I'm just
really
ready for
fucked
nature
up.
to run its course.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Please, sooner rather than later. Oh,
it's just funny that a lot of like conservatives have been like, oh, look at you protesting in a country where you're allowed to protest. You know, look at you protesting a king in a country where you're still allowed to protest. And it's like, do you hear yourself?
We're not even allowed to protest. They sent the Marines out. So you're not even really, technically, you're not allowed. They're saying you are, but if you do, you have a consequence behind it. So can we really do it?
Right. And then what happens when we actually can't? What are you going to say then?
Exactly.
Like, we're trying to...
That's where we're headed.
Protest the, like, eventuality of that. Of, like, eventually we're not going to be allowed to protest, so we protest while we can. And they're like, yeah, see, look at you protesting under a king. And it's like, yes. What do you mean? That's not a flex. That's not... Whatever you said was not, like...
The Virginia state motto is Sic Semper Tyrannis. So it means, kill tyrants. But yeah, so that's just... I'm being straightforward about what the Virginia state motto is. And also the first colonies, like all of them have like similar mottos, if I'm not mistaken, in their states to handle, essentially a tyrannical government. And also I wanted to say all this, what's going on is hilarious if you understand the fact that people who overstay their visas, that's not a criminal offense. That's a civil offense, meaning like that's a misdemeanor. So it's not something that's like you can really go to jail for. It's like you get a ticket and you have to show up in court, which is what they're doing. They are showing up in court, but that's also when they're getting taken. So it's sending a message that like, it's not about doing things the right way. It's just, if you're brown and you don't speak English, we're going to take you. And so that's really scary. That's where we're at. So just if your media is not covering that in your countries, now you got it from us.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's pissing me off is that a lot of us are just collateral damage, and we just happen to be born in a country that was founded upon genocide, slavery, racism, and so on and so forth. Like that's the people that are voting this in and voting for this, these are the people with the mindset that started this whole thing off to begin with. They have passed down their racist ideologies from generation to generation. And the rest of us are just sitting in a system like literally collateral damage. Don't want this. We want the best for everybody. But the ones that don't want the best for everybody are the ones in power. Mm-hmm. And here we are. And that's the gist of how tired a lot of us are. Like that's why I was like, I'll never protest again. Getting out there and protesting. Yeah. I'll never do it. Cause I don't even have the energy. I don't even have the mental energy to do this shit anymore. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I think the protest
doesn't
went
work
peacefully because Black people
because we were
show
not
up.
out there. Yeah.
I think they were waiting. They were
I honestly think that's why things are still going on peacefully, so far, is because they don't have anybody to take their anger out on, because that's really what they were waiting for, was for black men and black women to get out there and protest. Really black women, because we know black men don't typically get out and do much when it comes to that type of stuff. But if they do, whatever, they were waiting, and we're still not, a lot of us, not in large numbers, at least not that I'm aware of. I could be wrong about that. But we're not like we were back in Martin Luther King days, million man marches of black people. And you know what I mean? So and I don't think it's going to work. I just think you would just be making yourself a target.
Please don't go
harm.
out there.
So
like literally this is proof that it's gotta be left up to the white people. Like it's gotta.
The ones who got us in this position.
Yep.
Unfortunately, those MAGA people got us in this position. It is what it is. They have to get us out.
And now they're mad because it's coming for their wallet. So it's
Fascism
you
can be
go
voted
out.
in,
which I'm very glad about, by the way.
Out.
I'm actually glad about it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. You can't vote it out, Gwen. You can
That's
only...
what I'm saying. You can't vote it out. That's what I'm saying. It got voted in, but you cannot vote it out.
Yeah.
There's only one way fascism can go out.
And that's exactly why Trump said, vote for me now and you never have to vote again. And that went over so many people's heads because people are fucking dumb. And they have no critical thinking and no foresight. There's a reason why he said that. And it's like, okay, here we are. This is the country we're in. The United States is going to fall. It is what it is because of how it's founded. The United States had it coming, whatever. I'm just mad that we're in the midst of it and we didn't have anything to do. That's my only. I'm just pissed because I'm like, we didn't even do this.
Iran tweeted like, you're all going to feel it. And then everybody's on the comments like, we?
Yeah, I know. Who is we?
Right.
Who is we?
Like, can we just talk about this?
But once we fall, many other countries may, it is what it is. But I feel like this country has to fall and suffer really bad for however long and for it to if it's ever going to rebound. That's what's going to happen.
You're going to have the come to Jesus or whatever.
Yeah.
A bunch of people in high places will, Mother Nature, will have to do her thing on that as well in order to kick off us and as a country rebounding back to, I ain't gonna say back, somewhere to a better place, That's what has to happen. I've seriously been considering leaving. I just don't know where I will go, but I've really been thinking about it. I'm like, I don't want to be here. And I damn sure don't want to be seen as an immigrant in Italy if I go there or in fucking Japan if I, you know what I mean? And so that's why exactly. But I'm saying that's why I side with immigrants, and not wanting to see them getting deported because that could be any one of us at any moment because some of us see where this country is about to head. A lot of us are going to be wanting to flee up out of here because we're not going to have any other choice. And that's the only way I think some people will understand what it's like to be the immigrants in the U.S. And I've always thought it was wrong. Even when I was younger and I didn't even understand a lot of it, I'm like, why? They're not even bothering anybody. Like what are they doing to people to where y'all feel like y'all hate them so much? Like, get rid of it. Go back to your country. Like, why do you feel... Even when people have told me that as a black woman, go back to Africa, I'm just like, I've never even been. What are you talking about? I will be terrified there. I don't even know how to survive there in the jungle and whatever, So it's just hurtful to say that to people.
Of course it is. Like for people who didn't choose to be here, like people who have nowhere else to be safely, it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll just go back to my country and die. Like, cool, thank you.
Right?
I don't know. It's like, what do we owe each other, And some people don't want to answer that question in any way. They're like, no, like everybody owes me something, but we don't owe each other anything, which is crazy. Like you can't, that's uncooperative and evolution does not favor that. So hopefully we will come out of this a little bit differently, but yeah.
So the fact that the audience was so thin at Trump's military parade. Also, that's another thing, a sign of textbook fascism, was we have a military parade and the last time we had a military parade was to celebrate our victory for World War II. And that was whenever okay, it's just a celebration. It wasn't meant to be a sign of the end times. But the fact that he's just doing this for his birthday under the guise of it being the 250th anniversary of the military, but our veterans are going hungry, our veterans are homeless, our veterans don't have medical care.
They actually
our veterans
just
are not
made
being
it
taken care of.
easier to discriminate against veterans today. They passed a bill where if you are a Democrat veteran, they don't have to help you.
What?
They can refuse you service. Yeah.
I didn't know about that. We're going to have to link that down below so I can read that too. Because what?
That just happened today.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm not trying to like be excited. That's terrifying. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's where we're at. And also, okay, for Trump's military parade, the audience was as thin as a Virginia Slim cigarette. So, but in like all 50 states, all the states in the United States had protests called the No Kings protests, basically. And that is something historic. We've actually never had the protests in all 50 states against our sitting president in the history of our country. So that was pretty groundbreaking. And I hope that momentum continues because there's a lot more work to be done. So if you are at the protest, first of all, I'm very proud of you. And second of all, I hope that you take this energy and channel it into, maybe if you're bilingual, do a translation service with these migration law offices, because they are looking for volunteers, for people who can help migrants understand their rights. And if that's not something that's accessible to you, maybe try printing these tarjetas rojas. They're these miniature cards. Actually, hold up. I have some. Yeah, so these are blue, but yeah, so like these are something that you can hand to ICE if you're ever, out and ICE just has illegally detained you and won't say why you're being detained. But it says, I do not wish to speak with you, answer your questions, or sign or hand you any documents based on my Fifth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution. I do not give you permission to enter my home based on my Fourth Amendment rights under the United States Constitution unless you have a warrant to enter signed by a judge or magistrate with my name on it that you slide under the door. I do not give you permission to search any of my belongings based on my Fourth Amendment rights. I choose to exercise my constitutional rights. And on the bottom it says, these cards are available to citizens and non-citizens alike. So these amendments also apply to you even if you're a non-citizen. So even if you're here on a visa or even if you're here illegally, this is still very helpful. Mm-hmm. And I printed so many of these, but now I'm running into the problem of distributing them because now I'm like, I don't know this many people. I have like hundreds of these cards because you get this file, and we can link it down below for you. You can get this file and it prints out like 10 at a time if you print front and back. So yeah, I've been cutting these out, printing them all day long, and this is just one bag, and it's a lot. So there's so much you can do.
I bet there's like places you can drop them off at.
There
like
are
social services, like offices.
I just gotta get on that. So
Home Depot. Yeah,
definitely. So I'm just gonna hopefully hand those out, and I've enlisted some help, and I have a friend who has a friend that works in migration law, and so I'm gonna drop those off to her.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so like I said, like there's so many things you can do. It does not stop just because you went to one protest. You need to get actively involved in your communities. You need to be asking, what all you can do to better our situation, because this country is in a free fall right now. And I'm not even being hyperbolic. I really think it's that obvious where we're headed. So it's important now to be tuning in and reading the news, maybe not legacy media, but if you have an independent media source that you have done the research on and you approve of, like I would lean into independent media. Me personally, I like Brian Tyler Cohen because I think he's funny. I like David Pakman because he does lean left, but he's more objective of certain facts that I think get missed on a lot of media because they don't cover the fact that, coming to this country illegally is a civil offense, not a criminal one. And he's been the only one that I've heard talk about that. So I like David Pakman. And so yeah, those are just some of mine. And yeah, if you follow our podcast, maybe we can start talking about these a little bit more often just so we remain.
I mean, I think we will for sure. There's really no way doing this stuff takes getting really unified together and really getting on the same page rather than focusing right now on things that, I don't know, are not important and that divide us ultimately rather than bringing us together. If we want to take down the fascist regime that they're trying to place on this country via Project 2025.
He's trying to get a third term. I just want to slide that in there. But yeah, he's been trying to get that third term. So that's very scary because that's also against our Constitution.
And the way things are going, he just might get it.
Yeah.
That's the crazy. I mean,
because they're just at this point not listening to the courts. They're sending the National Guard wherever.
The Marines.
And those
tanks on that military parade, I don't think they're leaving.
But I feel like the government, they're allowing this. They're all allowing this though. Because it's they could have been stopped this. I look at the Democrats and I'm like, they could have been stopped this, but maybe they're allowing this because they know that nature might take its course. Sometimes you give people enough rope to hang themselves.
Yeah,
if you will.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the only. It's either that or they want this to happen. They're letting it happen.
I think that they are. They are how are you as a Democrat sitting on your hands on this while our government is deploying the Marines? that's crazy work. And also, I just think that like if I were thinking about this as a Democrat, like, and if I wanted like total control as well of our people, then I would let the red team set the groundwork. So that way, like when it's all laid out and all this is legalized, like now we can, and it's like one, like you get to be hands off, like, oh, it wasn't us that did this, but now like since all this is here now, like we might as well take advantage. Like we'll have a Democrat that has run 3 terms, like 3 terms as president, or like we can also make executive laws that will allow us to continue sending aid to Israel, even though that's very unpopular in the American people. Like we want that money to stay in our country so we can have healthcare. We can have these social safety programs that we need right now because our economy is also going to be in free fall if this continues. So yeah, and I just think that even if you were a Republican and you're looking at this and you're okay with it, what if, I mean, this could be very possible that a Democrat could be next and also making these executive laws that you entirely disagree with. And when you protest, guess what? You're not going to be able to protest because your team had already set the groundwork that made it illegal to protest. So think about that.
I mean, I wish the Democrats were not as
I wish they had teeth too, really
weak and spineless as they were, because they will have all this stuff available at their disposal and they just won't use it. They'll be like, no, that's like going too far. And it's like, okay, but then when actually other people actually do go too far, they're like, yeah, well, we can't do anything. Like, oh, I hate you so much.
I know. They're so like, oh, we don't have the House. We don't have the Senate. Our hands are tied. And it's like, God, y'all are so... And also, like, during
Start
Black
punching
Lives Matter,
people in the fucking face. Look at other people's, like, look at other countries, like, freaking Senate, like, meetings or whatever. People are in there throwing hands. People are in there.
So funny.
I think that they all have dirt on each other. I think each side has blackmail type dirt. And one side might be a little bit more damning than the other. It's like, if y'all come after this bill that we're trying to pass, I'm going to expose you because I know this about you or whatever. So
and you know what unites
that's
them
the
all?
only thing I can think of.
Misogyny.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the dirt that they all have on each other, right? Is like,
absolutely.
You're into little kids or you're into this and that. Like, that's what it is.
Yeah,
that's what the one thing they all stand united on.
Oh,
they're all on the Epstein list.
You are talking about marriages between men and women only, but we find out that you're seeing a man behind closed doors. Like they got dirt on. I'm telling you, that's really what I think. And I think
that's why nothing gets done.
And I think it's on each side too. I think some Democrats got some stuff. They all got dirt on each other. That's really what I think.
That's why the Democrats haven't released the Epstein list.
Exactly.
Like we know why the Republicans are not going to release it, but the Democrats as well are sitting on their hands about it. So I really do think it's going to be up to some foreign hackers, like these Chinese, Russian hackers, to expose that list because like we're all waiting.
I'll just be sitting back eating popcorn, just waiting. If I'm being honest,
me too. Even liberal voters are like, actually, we also want to see the Epstein list. We don't care if Biden's on it. We don't care if Democratic representatives are.
We want to know. We want to know who's on it, right?
Yep. It's too many powerful people, and that's why it hasn't been released yet.
Of course.
Yep. Absolutely.
Where are the hackers? Where are the super
hackers? I know. Where are these little
them?
hackers? Like, I know. I know y'all be out there, especially Anon. So.
You know what? I was just going to say, I think a lot of them are probably working on a way to release stuff without it being traced back to them. Because that'll be the hard part. Like, you would have to really take the time to make sure it can be traced back to you.
That's true, because then they will come for you. Like, you're not going to survive that.
You're not
going to have to flee the country.
Releasing it.
If you release it, And there's also been some things coming out about election tampering that I think the journalists who are exposing that also need to be in protective custody or flee the country because I think they're not going to be safe here either. I think there was one county that I think allegedly, and I should probably be fact checked about this later on, and we'll probably link it down below if I find the article. There was one county that's like a blue county, but that county, when they were counting their votes, there were none for Harris. So right? Like the math's not adding up.
We know that's not accurate.
There's been a little bit of a buzz about that ever since Elon Musk was like, oh, he wouldn't have won without me and like all this stuff. Like,
the funny thing is we knew that already. Everybody kind of looked and said he bought the election. Like we knew he did. Like we knew it.
Trump's like, Elon's really good with those computers. And we're like, guys, he's admitting to it. Like, I don't know.
They can't help it either. They always will tell him themselves.
Delight.
Give them, yes,
dumb.
exactly. Give them a microphone, give them a platform. They'll always tell on themselves. They always, always do.
So convenient how the Elon-Trump beef got swept under the rug very quickly because they both have dirt on each other. And I think
I was going to say, not
trying to stall
Elon Musk.
the nuclear option.
Yeah. Elon Musk coming out at 3 a.m. to say that, like, oh, I might have gone too far. I might have said too much. Like, friend.
I think somebody in the White House was like messaging
Did somebody
Elon
just beat your ass? Yeah, he's holding like an ice pack to his eye. Like, guys, I might have went overboard. Like, girl, what did they do to you?
They're messaging him about all the blackmail and dirt they have on him. So it's like, if you don't stop coming for our president, we're gonna release all this blackmail. So yeah, and it probably isn't even like, there's probably a chance that none of it's true either. Like, but they'll spin it anyways, and I think Elon knows that too. So
yep. All right. Well, thank you, Gwen, for that very, very educational tea time. I hope that this was helpful to our overseas listeners, to anyone that is, just wondering what is all going on and feeling like you're not getting the full picture. Hopefully you now have some sources you can go to, and hopefully you now know what to do to kind of be more helpful amidst all of this. And so thank you, Gwen. That was really, really awesome. We will be right back for a shortened main segment on the importance of intersectionality in feminism. All right, and we're back to discuss the importance of intersectionality within feminism. I think we have seen time and time again why it's important, and just especially for myself, like being a white woman, and especially being a white woman that immigrated from a different country where I wasn't exposed to the concept of intersectionality at all. It's very easy for us to see this as something that we can easily gloss over and appeal to uniting just all women together, when really what we're doing is excluding a lot of women by refusing to see the problems and the day-to-day things that they deal with, and discounting them or making it seem like certain other issues should come first, and that, Black women's issues are not as pressing. This has been exemplified all throughout history by Susan B. Anthony, who said we can either have a Black procession or a white procession or neither, when the Black women asked to march with the white feminists for the right to suffrage. And so Black women, for that reason, did not receive the right to vote. And many other people, for that reason, did not receive the right to vote until much, much later on. Because this is actually how the feminist movement eats itself every time. A lot of people like to talk about how, women argue about pointless things, or like women, like married women are not part of the feminist movement, and like they're dividing the feminist movement and stuff like that. But what really divides the feminist movement is non-inclusivity and the misunderstanding of, or just the ignorance about intersectionality and about the problems that not just white women face. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very hard for white women, because a lot of white women have main character syndrome, and they literally cannot picture, the things that don't happen to them happening to other people. They're like, well, it's not like that for me. Mm-hmm. So clearly you must be lying, or you must be exaggerating, or you must be making this up. And it's very disappointing to see it, time and time again. And I, for one, am just a very firm believer in we're all spinning our wheels in the mud until we actually come together. Like, I'm not interested in like spinning my wheels within white feminism about issues that ultimately don't move us forward, because they're issues of empowerment and not issues of liberation, right? A lot of white women's idea of the patriarchy or of feminism is actually like, we want the patriarchy, but it's just women, and white women are on top, and we take care of everyone. We tell everyone what to do. That's a lot of white women's idea of feminism. Like, it doesn't actually remove the hierarchy at all. They want to be able to tell people what issues matter and what issues don't, just like Susan B. Anthony. So that's just my little spiel, my little intro on that. And I obviously want to open this up. We tried our hardest as a podcast to be educational about this stuff, to be always like kind of mention these issues. And because that is what we stand for. Like, it's simple. It's very clear. We're not going anywhere until we actually unite as women.
I mentioned this before. I think the problem with some white women is that they are white first and all the other stuff comes second and it makes sense. Like, I'm not excusing it at all. So by any means am I excusing it. But I understand, like, just from a humanistic standpoint, like I understand human psychology, the way humans think. If you are the right-hand man to the power structure or the people that are running everything, then you're not going to want to give up your power. Even if it means losing your rights, especially if you think, well, my rights really actually won't be lost because, I'm married to the governor of the state and I can get away with everything. I won't ever actually get tickets for speeding because my husband will make them go away. I'm just using it as an example. So sometimes they will vote against their own interests because they don't actually think that they're voting against their own interests. That's what comes first. And I don't know if I can confidently say that if Black women were in that position that we would do the same thing. Based on human nature, I would probably say yes, if I'm being honest. Not necessarily that, or same thing with Asian women or whatever group of people's the men that are in power. So if it was Japanese men in power, the Japanese women are not going to want to give up their privilege. I don't think the Black women will want to give up their privilege. I think it's a human thing, but it gets to a point where it's like, okay, we also have the power to overthrow this because we actually care about other races and we don't want to see other races being discriminated against. So we actually have the power to do something about it because we're next to the men that are in power. So it's like, when are those particular white women going to see that and want to make that change? And it's just not enough for them that want to. And that's why we're still, like you said, spinning our wheels in the mud, because it's like at the end of the day, some of them don't want to give up their power or their perceived power. And some of them, unfortunately, feel better about feeling like they are above other groups of people, and that's what's keeping them there. And then you got the other group of white women that's like, look, no, like, we should stick together. Like, at the end of the day, we're all women and we're kind of really in the same boat, and the laws are against women. So even if you are next to the power structure, they're taking your rights away too. You are subjugated too. It's just I don't know what it's going to take, honestly. I don't know what it's going to take to get the other ones on board. That's where we are. So for other people, I was talking about this before on the podcast a few months back, but for other people who don't understand why some white women voted for Trump, that's why. Because their whiteness and their power, their perceived power next to white men is more important than their actual rights. And as long as we have enough of them that feel that way, we're not going to go anywhere as a society. We're going to keep this hamster wheel. It's going to keep going for the next, I don't know how many centuries, how many generations.
As long as it has.
Yeah.
As long as it has, it'll keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not just limited to just white women. It's also other feminist groups that have this like infighting syndrome thing going on. Like, for example, and I'm not saying this is all, but there's just this couple of accounts that I've come across where they claim to be the 4B movement, and they use that as a baton to beat other women with. And that's insane to me, because if you know anything about the 4Bs was started as a response to the inherent misogyny within our culture as Koreans, because it's a generational thing. And so the only way that they have felt is a reasonable way to respond is just by just taking a step back from men altogether. So like, no having children with men, no having sex with men, no dating men, no coupling with them whatsoever, and like not even interacting with them. And that's just been the best way for them to move forward. It was not meant as a baton to beat other women with for being heterosexual or for being or for associating men by choice, but also because like we live in such a world, men make up 50% of the population, so they're there whether we like them or not. And the 4Bs is always a personal choice, and you could not beat that into submission into other women. So I don't understand why some of these groups feel the need to, come after straight women or hetero women or for being male identified, because like it's a process for all of us, even on an individual level. So when we do that, it's also signaling to these women that, you're excluded from this like group. Like, we're going to gatekeep this version of feminism. And so like, it also puts it in their head that all feminists are like this. Like, all feminists are just these radical fringe groups who don't like other women and will put each other down. And so like, it's not sending the message that they think it's sending when you exclude hetero women who make up a large percentage of feminist demographic. So
I understand why. Because like I can always put myself in other people's shoes, and like understand their point of view, even if I don't agree with it. They feel like if you are straight, you are a part of the patriarchy because men are holding us back. So any woman that's still standing side by side holding a man's hand as her boyfriend or her husband, we're not, if it's too many of us, we're not, they think that we're not going to fight the patriarchy that way because we are still loving men and wanting to be in relationship with men. So it's like,
that.
so they're like, pick a side. Like we have to all stick together. And if you're fucking a man, then somehow you're not a part of the cause. And I understand everybody's point of view, but what they don't understand is, like Lisa was saying a few weeks ago, this is not the time. This is not the time to focus on that. We have a whole system coming after our rights, and that's what we need. No matter if you're straight or not. No matter if you're straight or not. Like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it's like we should literally be. I understand everybody
kumbayaing so much right now, like for real, with the sisterhood. Like
we should be. But I feel like what's happening is everybody is in their own progression. Like I think a lot of us are all
it's a conveyor belt.
Everybody's headed to the same destination.
Yes,
but we're on different roads. And we're at different roads at different times, and we're all in different phases of our evolution at the same time. We're all, this person is in stage 2, this person is in stage 14, this person is in stage 3. And so I think that's why we can't come together, because we can only see it from our individual point of view. And a lot of us are not looking at it from everybody else's point of view. And it's like, where do we find the common ground? Because we're all in different, like you said, different conveyor belts. One going this way, one going that way, one going upwards, one going sideways and diagonal. And it's like, fuck.
We're trying to go to the same destination. I just think people don't realize there's a million different ways to get there. And
it is.
A lot of people don't truly don't understand projection, which is something that I try really hard not to do as a married woman. I know we don't do this on the podcast, as all of us are coupled up with men. And what we don't do, though, is we don't say, here's how you find a good man. Here's, we found the good ones. Here's how you do it too. And you should do it. And you should go out there and date. And men are good and it's not all men. That's what we don't do. See, if we did that, we would be projecting. We'd be projecting our personal experience, disregarding all the data, disregarding, women's suffering all over the world. And we would just be saying, no, because we did it, because so y'all should do it too. That's called projection, right? And what a lot of women don't understand is they're doing the same thing on the other side. So they're saying, if you're with a man, that means you haven't decentered men. And it's like, no, that's projection. Because what you don't realize is the fact that, a lot of your favorite content creators in this space, the fact that they have come out the other side of this bell curve, right? And they have ended up finding a good, supportive partner who understands the importance of feminism, understands the importance of tearing down the patriarchy. That's what happens when you come out the other side sometimes. And it's not the goal, it's not the end goal, whatever, but it so happens because you have a very good filtration system, because you've gone through all the stages of grief, anger, bargaining, whatever, and you've accepted certain things that have made it easier for you to weed out a bunch of losers, even just by holding yourself out of the dating scene. And it's like you can end up partnered on the other side of this, right? Rightfully partnered in the way that it kind of should be, right? And what a lot of people don't understand is when they say you can't be in a relationship with man and decenter men, it's like, no, that's where you're at. And that's what you're projecting out. So, and that's why I fully support women who want to do 4B, who want to remove themselves completely and fully, because it's if
separatism.
If you don't do that, right, if you're of the mindset that you can't be with a man without centering them, then you should remove yourself from them.
Absolutely.
You haven't done the work. You haven't done the inner work to center yourself, right? Once you come out of that and you center yourself, there are men who want to be with women like that.
Literally.
So and they will kind of just fall into your lap. That's kind of how it happens. You don't even have to go out of your way. I mean, ask me, ask Sovereign, ask Gwen. It's you're literally just going to be there okay, well, if you fuck up, you're out the door in 0.5 seconds flat. And they're like, I swear to you, like I'll never fuck up. And when they do, guess what? You're going to be like,
good.
Get the fuck out. Yeah, you're good. That gives me the ick. I don't want to be with a man who doesn't like want to understand these things. I don't want to be with a man who doesn't want to be with me. Like, I will not fall to my knees and cry out to God. Like, why? Like, why did this happen? Like, why did my man leave me? Like,
you gonna be like, to hell with him. I'm going on a trip with my girls this weekend. Fuck it. You know what I mean? You're just not gonna care.
Take this credit card. I'm gonna run it up, and we're gonna peace.
Exactly.
Take this alimony and we're gonna go.
And that's why I'm so glad you said that, because they're like, how can y'all support this? Because the 4B thing, they're like, how can you support 4B but you're not 4B anymore, or you're not 4B at all, or whatever? And it's like, well, I support so many things that I'm not a part of. Like, what you mean?
It's so easy.
It's easy as hell.
I support La Raza even though I'm not Mexican and I'm not Hispanic, and like I support Black Lives Matter even though I'm not Black.
Right.
Like, it's just, these things can coexist. We do not exist in a vacuum.
I support the immigrants that don't want to be sent back to where they came from if they don't want to. Like, I support them being here. I don't want them to be deported. You know what I mean? And I'm not in that situation. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, we can support a lot of things.
So it's literally that simple.
It's really simple. It's like, do you care about other people or not? That's literally what it boils down to.
And what I like about the separatist movement is that they really do the work. Shout out to Sister Separatist. I do follow her. I followed her for a long time on Twitter. And I like that she's always caring about other women who have been victims of domestic violence, and women who have just been disenfranchised by the patriarchy altogether. And she runs these programs that are like, hey, I'm doing this food drive to take care of women in domestic violence shelters. I'm running these campaigns to try to make sure that, these women have access to shelter for if they've been a victim of domestic violence. And she's always she's making that work. And so I just support that. I really do. And I think that's so important. I wish more feminist movements were doing that. So I think we should take a page out of that book and make our feminism more about, centering women. That's all this has ever been about, is like centering women. Maybe the message should be less about, decentering men and more about centering yourself, centering women, centering the women around you, the women in your community, the women who have always been there for you, the women who are here now. And I think that just gets lost in translation whenever we just keep talking about decentering men. So I'll give them that. But at the same time, like, I think if you would just sit back and take in the full context. But centering men is like, the default in our society. So we do have to decenter men. Like, that's the first step on the conveyor belt. Yeah, once you're ready to move past that, then you center yourself, right? Once you're ready to move past that, then you're self-actualizing, right? That's the conveyor belt. But the first step will always be decentering men because they're forcefully centered in our society, and they fucking act like it. And they act like it. So we need to act like, we know what the game is, right? It's like, you're trying to take my ideas, right? Because if we don't talk about decentering men and like the fact that men are already centered, it's like a young woman can go and get a job, right? And then she just keeps getting spoken over and she doesn't know why. Right? And it's like, center yourself. And she's like, I can't. I keep getting spoken over, right? It's like, you have to know the enemy. Like, you have to know what is actually like happening, because the real enemy is the patriarchy. Yeah. It's all of these hierarchical systems, including capitalism, including white supremacy. And that's why intersectionality is so important, because if you're going to talk about, we need to decenter men, we need to decenter this male hierarchy, this patriarchy, whatever. Well, we also need to decenter the hierarchy of white supremacy, because if we leave one hierarchy up, that means other hierarchies will automatically fall into place and rebuild itself around that hierarchy. Right. So, right now, it's like, you could argue that this is all really built around the hierarchy of capitalism at this point, right? Like, white supremacy is very closely intertwined with like capital and like the creation or the exploitation, right, of people that have no way to protect themselves. So you have this exploitative system, but it also benefits from the patriarchy being in place and white supremacy being in place. But it's all centered now around money. And that's why like there's a lot of calls to abolish capitalism, mostly by the people that are affected the most by it, Black women and sex workers. They're all abolitionists of capitalism. And so that's why you have to listen to the most marginalized people, because they know what's up. They know the systems that are hurting them. Because for some of us, these systems are not hurting us. Like you were saying, Sovereign, the reason white women are so like, what's the big deal? Because it's not happening to you. Like, what's that meme about the owl, like, and the eagle? And they're talking about like, there's like two eagles talking and they're like, yeah, why was like the mouse saying that the owl is mean or something, like the owl is out to get him? Like
we've never had any problems with the owl.
Right.
The owl's
cool.
But they're all they're all predator birds. They're all birds of prey.
Birds of prey.
Yep.
I think that's the term. See, I need y'all to lock in y'all's Discovery Channel.
Yeah, I
Brains
know,
on the
right?
Animal Planet.
Yes, same.
Birds. I think it's birds of prey. Yes, we don't always see eye to eye on every little thing. Me, Lisa, and Sovereign, but we know at the end of the day the goals are the same.
Yeah.
And same thing with like some of these groups and people that I follow on Twitter. I don't see eye to eye on every little thing, but I know that the goal is the same. I know that their heart is in the right place, and I can take that common interest and just run with it. Like, it doesn't have to be binary. It doesn't have to be the nitty gritty and the details. Yes. It just has to be, is the central message the same? And the central message is always down with the patriarchy. And that's what I'm about. So I think it can just be as simple as that. And that's also the thing about the 4Bs, dare I say it. And I'm so sorry, but it's a privilege to be able to descender. I mean, it's a privilege to be able to not be able to interact with men. Because 100%. In some cultures, you have to interact with men. And that is not by choice or anything.
You have to have a male escort to go outside.
That's crazy.
Yes. And it means death. To be identified, even in Korea, to be identified as a feminist can mean certain death because they'll just beat you up for less. They beat up a woman in Korea for having short hair because they thought she was a raging feminist. And so they just took it upon themselves to beat the shit out of her. So that's also something I want the 4B women who are using this as a baton to beat hetero women up with to understand about the 4B movement. Okay. It was also started by hetero women who had been experiencing this and just had enough. Yeah. So don't be using that as a baton to beat up hetero women. That's bullshit. And you know it.
Mm-hmm. And just to say that like married women can't do the work or like, and it's like, it's the most important for married women to do the work because chances are they have children. They're the ones interacting with these men. So it's like, who is going to set the men straight? The women that are not speaking to them, the women that are not like, who's going to talk to them? And it's like you come out the other side understanding that feminism isn't just important for women. It's important for men. And also, since we have to share the planet with these people, they're 50% of the population, like you said, Gwen, in some countries more so, right? They're more so the population because, of the one-child policy and stuff like that.
Sex-selective abortions.
Yes, exactly. And it's like we literally like unless we take it upon ourselves to do something like very, very, very radical, which I don't think like there's any plans for that right now. So unless we do that, then we have to face the fact that we share the planet with them and that when you go outside, you're going to see men.
Yeah,
when you get a job, you're going to see a man. So you can't be like, oh, I'm 4B, I'm like separatist. Like, okay, to an extent, you're going to go to the grocery store and there's going to be a man there. Like, what are you going to do?
When you get your oil change, you're going to have to get your oil change in your car. When your roof needs repairing, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be men that you're going to have to deal with. I totally agree. We can't escape it. You might as well just find ways to just cope with it until...
And that's actually what the 4Bs was about. It's just in the ways that you can decouple yourself from men.
And I'm all for that.
Same.
And just to be sure, I'm all for that. If I ever have the choice, like I want to work with women, you know what I mean? Like, but it is, there's certain privileges that like, I mean, there's a lot I could go into, but it's like you can definitely partner up with men, right? To take down the thing that harms them too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And yes, there's not as much incentive for them to take it down. That's what we're trying to explain. That's why intersectionality is so important to understand because like the reason that a lot of, Black men voted for Kamala Harris was kind of like, I don't know, maybe Sovereign, like you can speak on this too. It's like they maybe didn't vote for it for like the same reasons that Black women did or women did in general. But it's like, was that helpful to us? Like, yes. Like at the same time, it's kind of like we don't want to discount the fact that intersectionality plays a role in politics, right? So there's women out there that I won't name, but that voted for Trump that are claiming to be feminists, right? But then it's like, how do we hold that on the same plane as like there's men out there who are arguably like misogynistic, but they voted for a female president. So I'm just saying like intersectionality plays into every part of our life. And like all of these hierarchical structures at the end of the day hurt certain men too. And they hurt men as a general. And so it's not like as though it's like this big flex for men to be under the patriarchy. Like it is, but it's only because it benefits them the most, but it also hurts them.
I think it's going to harm them most more than us in the end though.
Exactly.
Like, it's already starting to...
Look at them.
Yeah.
Look around.
because you can only do this to people for so long before it backfires.
Even the ones that were wholeheartedly supporting Trump in the beginning, like Joe Rogan, are starting to backtrack because some of the things that are happening now are completely indefensible. Like the fact that he called the Marines and like the fact that he called in the National Guard, even though that was not authorized by the state government. So, and also like the fact that, you know, they're actually starting to somewhat agree with the liberals' point of view in that, like, you know, the things that they were supporting now are starting to hurt them. And like that whole emotional vulnerability, which they will never say out loud, but even that is starting to kind of crumble around them because they're losing followers because they're not as angry as they were, or maybe they're starting to see or even entertain the opposition's point of view a little bit. And so now they're like, well, what was even the point? And I think one of them was, what was his face? Sneeko. Sneeko was actually probably one of the first ones that I could think of because he was losing followers because he started playing up the fact that, you know, he's Haitian and his followers probably didn't know that about him. And so he's starting to say like, well, y'all are just being fucking racist. And it's like, hello.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was your audience.
Yeah, literally. That was his audience. Wow.
Yeah, and so a lot of men don't understand intersectionality and they go into the patriarchy like head first, like ready to, you know, benefit from it. And at the end of the day, it's like you are going to get burned by the thing that you're trying to use to benefit yourself unfairly. This happens to a lot of white women too. At the end of the day, once they start, you know, sort of unpacking these things or unpacking like disability, right? For a lot of white women, this starts with realizing they're neurodivergent. And then that leads them down a whole rabbit hole of like, oh, well, I am treated differently than other women. And so it must follow that other women, you know, like Black women are also discriminated against. Like it's one of those things that like, unfortunately, until it happens to you, it's very hard to understand. And like a lot of white immigrant women especially, you know, they'll take this very, very far, approximate themselves to whiteness, you know, like
Asians
do all this, do the most, right? And then just for white people to be like, yeah, but you're not really from here. And you're like, oh,
Right. Actually, I want to speak directly to Asian women on here. Even though I'm Asian and I'm very white passing, I've acknowledged that about myself, and that's not a secret. But I do know my culture and I do know my people, and I do know that they vote red 9 times out of 10. And I know that they do that because when they get here, they are bullied so mercilessly that in order to assimilate, they feel like they have to vote red because all these other people are voting red around them. And and so I think we need to have like a Santa isn't real type of conversation because they were putting us in camps too. Not Koreans, but they're putting the Japanese in camps. And I think
they were being indiscriminate. They just said if you look Asian, you're going in a camp. Yeah.
There were probably Koreans that were put in that camp too. But I digress. Absolutely. And so I think once they're done with the Hispanics, if you're not fucking paying attention now, it's going to be us next. It's going to be our families in there too, if not already. They're coming for the Southeast Asians first before they're coming for the East Asians. And I think East Asians know why. But I digress again. And so it's just that, you know, to them, we look Chinese. Or not me, but to my family members, they look Chinese to the white people, and they will never take the time with their racism to discern the difference between a Japanese person or a Korean person. So if they were to do the internment camps again, they're going to put the Koreans in there too with the Japanese. And so what then?
And then just think about it too. Like if they got rid of all the Asians and all the Black people and all the Latinas, like who do y'all think going to be the permanent underclass then? Because capitalism still has to roll on in this country that was founded upon genocide, slavery, and whatever else. So, like, you'll be the next in line to be put as the underdog. So, my whole thing is, if I was a white woman, I would want to protect. And I'm just saying, even from a selfish point of view, just from my own self-interest, I would want to help protect the people under me, because if they are just went away, like some of the powers that be wants, we're going to be the next underdogs. Do you know what I'm saying? Like we're going to be in their position, if that makes sense.
It does.
It does make sense, yeah.
And I think what's the hardest thing for white women to acknowledge is that you are in the underclass too. You are DEI too. DEI was for you, actually. And it was made for us. Yes. And so it's hard for them to come to that concept because I know under, patriarchy, we are giving certain privileges and certain things that, are withheld from others. And so that is so hard for them to come to grips with, because just because, it hasn't happened to them personally, then it doesn't exist. You are part of the underclass if you are not a straight, hetero, white man in America. You
Yep.
are, if you're a white woman, you are still part of the underclass. You are still DEI.
Mm-hmm.
So you are an underclass if you're not a straight white man in America.
But they just think white women just look down and they see so many people below them that they just assume. But it's like, it's an infinite, it's turtles all the way down, you know, it's turtles all the way up and all the way down. Because even within that white man class, right, it's like you are more privileged if you're tall. You're more privileged if you're handsome. You're more privileged if you have talents or athletic ability or are born into money.
Yep.
You all of these things, it's like an infinite turtles all the way up and all the way down. And nobody really wins at the end of the day. Not a single person. Even the guy who's at the top never feels like he's won because people are always coming after him.
Yep.
So it's a lose, 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 lose all the way up and all the way down. Like that's the thing. And once you understand that, you can actually start fighting for everybody instead of like ignoring people's lived experiences, people's real ass problems. Like just because you're like, well, it didn't happen to me, so it must not be true. Like what kind of a jackass are you? Like at the end of the day, I just...
Remember when I used the Gretchen Wiener's reference about it's better to be in the plastics hating life than to not be in the plastics at all. And that is some white women in this country.
Exactly.
Like they'll be miserable next to them, but it would be much better to be alongside the power structure than it is to be a black woman or to be an Asian woman or you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I thought of that reference after the election. And I was like, that's what it's about. Most of the white women, whatever percentage of white women voted for Trump are Gretchen Wieners. And it just is what it is.
And they don't realize they're suffering the most because it's like other people, it's like, I may be cringe, but I'm free. You know, I may be hated by everybody, but I'm free.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're the one suffering under your own like boot. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And speaking of Mean Girls, it is unfortunately, well, kind of unfortunately, but time to wrap up this segment and move on to our next segment, which is a film review segment. And the film that won our Patreon exclusive poll is Woman of the Hour. So we'll be right back with that. And we're back. If you're wondering why it's just me and Gwen for this film review, it's because we unfortunately had a very last minute poll. And so Sovereign was not able to watch the film in time. Luckily, Gwen and I stayed up and crammed for this exam. So we are ready. We've got notes. We're ready to give y'all a very comprehensive film review. Once again, the movie is The Woman of the Hour. It was directed by Anna Kendrick and written by Ian something. I think it was written by a man.
That's surprising because there were a lot of good points there, but I'm like,
yep,
I'm glad there was a woman behind it.
Yes. So Ian McDonald. And it is based on a true story. So that's part of like, it wasn't like all written by a man, I guess in a sense it was, but yeah, based on a true story. And I thought it was very well directed, like really well put together. I thought the story was written very well in a way to like expose the truths of reality that we live in. Like, I just thought there was so much good stuff that they were able to point out in the film.
Like women are not believed.
Yes.
And they're all labeled as hysterical. And the fact that like she tried so hard to talk to somebody who was on that dating show, the producer, and they pointed her to a janitor. They were like,
seriously,
yeah.
And if that isn't a women like a, you know what I mean, a canon event, like a real experience that women have a lot, right? Or they just tell you like, go talk to another woman about it, or like, you know, just talk it out with your girlfriends or something. And at the end of the day, it's only women that look out for other women. I thought that was like a very strong theme in the movie as well. So like, the makeup lady, she was like the only one looking out for her, right? The audience member. She was like a fairy
godmother. It was so sweet.
She was awesome. The audience member, right, that tried to go to the police. The waitress that she said don't serve us any more drinks. And the waitress was like, oh yeah, it's actually our last call. Like, sorry, we can't like serve you anymore. So like that's girl code. And I think it's really important to talk about girl code from that lens, because oftentimes we do kind of crap on girl code and we're like, women don't stand together enough and like all that stuff, which is still valid. I was just about to say, which is very, very true. But it's kind of hard to do that when our basic safety needs are not met. And that's what girl code is used on. It's almost like we use all of that sort of energy just to tread water, just to keep our chin above water, whereas men don't have to worry about their basic safety needs as much. And so they get to use bro code just to be assholes, like just to like for extra things, it's like kind of out there for them to use as part of their privilege. But for women, it's like a survival code. It's not a code of privilege. It's a code of survival. And I think that movie is like the first thing that is like the thing that made me realize that for the first time. Almost like I was like, shit, like now I understand that like why girl code and bro code are so different. Like we can't afford the kind of bro code that men have, unfortunately.
Right. And they really genuinely think that our girl code is meant to be able to be gold diggers, to extract the most from men with as little on our end as possible. And I think that they really do 100% believe that. And maybe some women do too. I think some women do too also believe that. And so that's also extremely hurtful. But it's so disappointing. But I digress. We can get into the movie now. So
no, I mean, this is all I loved. Yeah, there's so much more to say. But those are just like kind of some of the bigger themes I was saying. Mm-hmm. But sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And I really like the fact that this movie just goes into different POVs from each of these like victims. And I think in the end, like we learned it's over 100 victims that he had, which is crazy. But in the 70s, everybody was just like allowed to fuck off, I guess. Like it was just a lawless wasteland in the 70s.
That's
is what I gathered. It
seems like, geez.
And because like DNA evidence just was not what it is today. So back in the 70s, they had a lot more serial killers. They were able to just get away with it because nobody gave a shit about women. Even other women didn't give a shit about each other enough to the point where we have now. And so I just thought that was a perfectly exemplified in the movie too. Was like this in the 70s, like women, we really did only have each other. And even then it was still like a very thin line because there were just as many women who were, laughing in the audience and going along with some of these like sexist ass like questions that she like the first woman before Anna Kendrick goes on, she was reading out these cards and one of them was like, if I was an ice cream flavor, what flavor would I be and how would you eat me? Like, gag.
Yeah. Gross.
So women are just as, upholders of the patriarchy. But I really liked that, the fairy godmother makeup artist was just like, have fun. What's he going to do? Fire you? Mm-hmm, You're only here for one show. And so it clicked for her. And now she got to like write her own cards. And that's when it really got funny and interesting. And
exactly. Yeah, men really only want us as far as we're props. He said, just smile and look pretty.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, I saw that too. And I was like, yeah, that tracks for men. And so when she started to have her own fun and she's wondering like, oh, maybe did I take it too far? And I like that she doubled down, the fairy godmother like doubled down and was like, no, actually, you just put it more succinctly because like all women are always asking the same questions, but yours are just more clear. Which one of you is going to hurt me?
Exactly.
And I was like, I was going to say, that...
Makeup lady was really the main character. Like she really,
we stand.
She summed it all up like so perfectly. The question behind the question, which one of you will hurt me? I literally wrote that down. I was like, that is, whoa. And the answer is all of them in some different way, right? Because if she would have went with like the first dummy.
Yeah, he was dumb, but he would have
led her off a cliff. The second guy was like a little bit more. Yes, but he was very rapey and he was like, he definitely viewed women as objects, right? Like, well, if I say that girls are just for whining and dining, then y'all are going to think I'm the villain. But if I say that women are da-da-da, then y'all are going to think that I'm just kissing ass. And it's like, you still don't get it. And you're still very much the type of man to like hurt a woman, discount a woman, like just like that audience member's boyfriend, right? He was like, no. See, the police must have cleared him, whatever. And I was so happy when she was like, get out of my car.
I know, it's always... It's always men who are trying to like be our logical supporters. They think that every
so
situation
disgusting,
requires
dude.
logic.
Yes.
And I like that the apology was that he actually drove her to the police station. And because like he showed up with flowers and I was like, oh, it's just going to be like one of those things where it's a half-assed apology where he knows he did wrong, but he doesn't understand how he fucked up. But I like that he in the end, well, not in the end, but like I like that he came to the conclusion like I fucked up. Let me rectify the situation by believing her and driving her to the police station. Like that's what women need. Women don't need men to be these like men who are just put on this cape to be Mr. Logical all the time. And
oh my God, yes.
he was just trying to explain it away, and doing so was very diminutive, and it was very distracting from the real problem that she was trying to say, like, I know this man killed my friend. And that should have stood out a lot more to him, but I think he just was explaining it all away. And he was just like, oh, well, maybe, like, I'm sure that man is just everywhere and always around the corner to you for somebody like you who has experienced something like that. And it's like, you're still missing the point. You're still diminishing her. You're still almost belittling her in some ways. And it's just, that's just men in a nutshell. That's always like men, and I'll put a visual below of what I'm talking about, but like it's a spectrum with men. Like men always think that it's black and white when really it's always like some fine lines of red in there where it's like on the graphic. Me too. It's so poignant. It's so succinct, and it puts it so perfectly in a visual format to where most people can understand, especially women, where like maybe they're not rapists, but they diminish women's issues. They don't think that they're all that bad. They maybe underestimate the problem. Maybe, and so that just chef's kiss. I think it describes that man. He was somewhere in the middle of that little bar that I'm going to show you all.
100%. And that's why I always say, if you let men lead you, they will lead you off a cliff. Every single time we watched, I mean, this is not, like I'm not trying to sneak another movie into the movie review, but like there was a horror movie that we just watched called Speak No Evil with James McAvoy, who acted the fuck out of it. And like his character was so scary. But like the whole horror part of it happened because the husband kept discounting his wife, and he kept being like, no, they're nice people. They're not going to do anything bad. Da, da, da. And it's like women have an intuition for a reason. We have been hunted by men for like ages, right? So it's like we literally have a second intuition when it comes to these things, and it's so important to listen. And the fact that Anna Kendrick's character was like, I don't even date. And it's like, that was poignant because not only, I wrote this down, but not only is dating a risk, just existing is a risk. And men who are willing to help, quote unquote, women are often doing that to hurt them or exploit them. Like Anna Kendrick's roommate in the movie, like he clearly wasn't a girl's boy, right? He was like, oh yeah, girl, fake, empowering, manipulative, all that. And then that other guy, like the serial killer guy,
he was also extremely manipulative.
He was also extremely helpful to women, right? And like saw women and
he
like
knew all the right things to say, all the right things to do, because he studies his victims. Like that is a man who studies what, is more likely to lure these women in and get your guard down. Because that's what these serial killers do, is like they just get your guard down. And I think that
you could see him.
Perfectly.
I love that they showed it in real time, him like calculating, like when the audience clapped and he was like, oh, okay, I see. This is what they like. They like this. And he would just kept going with it. And it's crazy because this is why we say, watch out for the men who tell you everything you want to hear, for the men who know all the right things to say, for the men who call themselves, male feminists and stuff. Yeah, because these are the most dangerous men because they're in there for a calculated reason. They're in there for their own reasons and they still want to hurt you. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, they're oftentimes using these tactics to disarm you and to worm their way into your life so that they can for better, for worse. Like, I mean, that's literally what that guy did. Like he was like, oh yeah, let me help you move your furniture up and then murder you in your own house. Like that shit was crazy. Let me take a picture of you because you're so beautiful. I'm going to pick on the fact that you have low self-esteem at this exact moment in time to like lift up your self-esteem and take pictures of you and show you how beautiful you are. Like he was so, and also did you catch the part where he was like, I always get the girl because he knows it's a proven formula by now. Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes.
He had that reassurance.
Yeah.
He had that bit of confidence because he knew by that point, and I don't know how many victims he had prior to going on the show, but he just already knows that, like, he knows what women likes because he got that bit of validation at that point. So that also stood out to me is how cocky he was and how reassured he was that he wasn't going to get caught.
And speaking of cocky and reassured, he also figured out that being just really confident is like the way, like when he was dropping all those pictures, like showing people like those pictures of the women tied up and stuff, like he knew that if he just showed it confidently and then was like, oh no, it's a joke, it's like whatever. Yeah, like my husband actually pointed that one out. He was like, see, he knows that it's like, if you just show it confidently enough, it's like, oh, that guy's weird, but like, whatever, you know? I don't know.
I always thought he did that just because he could. Because men back then could. And so, and often did. This was also when Playboy was like kicking off, was I want to say like the 60s, 70s. So I think he would have also just been able to explain it away that way. Like, oh, I'm just a art photographer. This is my art. And it's just women tied up. And
yes.
Getting
That's
abused
part
7
of
ways to
why we
Sunday.
we side eye certain communities.
I'm going to say it. I side eye the BDSM community. I don't care. Just
if you are, we've talked about this. Like if you're a femdom, we're good with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna look the other way. I'm gonna pretend I do not see.
That brings balance. No, that brings balance to the universe. Okay, but if you are the other way around, that does not bring balance to the universe.
That just you're just
that just feels like you have an abuse kink, and I don't think putting kink after something just makes it automatically okay.
Thank you. I also kind of side eye people who say the word kink shame unironically because. We will kink shame you. It's just criticism, and nobody is immune to criticism, even us. And so, and there's gonna be plenty of criticism from what I just said about the BDSM community. But I'm here for it. So come for me.
That's fine. Go ahead. So we also noticed that like the presence of men is the only other thing that might deter a man from attacking you. But at the same time, so there was like these two scenes juxtaposed in the movie where like they have that conversation in the parking lot. And then he says that thing to her. He's like, and then I'll bash your head in or whatever.
Yes.
And she's like, what? And then he like looks at her for a long time. And then he notices like a group of men coming out from that tunnel. And he's like, okay, whatever. And he just starts walking away.
Yeah, backs off.
But then we also see like right after that scene, they have that scene where he's driving that bloodied up girl who was like, oh, you know, just make sure you don't tell anyone about this. That's basically how she saved herself, right?
And that's a true story, too.
Yep. And she was the one that put the final nail in his coffin, as they said at the end of the movie. So go, girl. But when he was driving her all bloodied up, they come to this 4-way stop and they stop across from this male like guy in a truck. And he looks at them for a long time and he clearly notices something's wrong. And he doesn't say anything, doesn't do anything, doesn't ask if she's okay, nothing like that. And so it's kind of this like juxtaposition of like, maybe men will help you, but maybe they won't.
Maybe more often that they don't.
Yeah, more often that they don't. And also I brought it up too that like, even if those men, even if he did start attacking her and then that group of men came over and like fended him off and like defended her, what would they want? Would they have, would they have any expectations on like, oh, well, we protected you, so now you owe us or something?
Exactly. And I just think that like 9 times out of 10, men think that they're going to be this hero that steps in and would say something or do something if they see a woman in distress. But more often than not, they're the man driving the truck that just thought that, I'm going to mind my business and it's not anything to concern myself with. And like, that's men, like overwhelmingly. And I think Anna Kendrick did a really good job to put that in the movie because that chef's kiss. And I just think was that her first directing role?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I hope to see more of her work.
Me too.
That was always so good. That was a treat.
It really was. Yes. And I was going to say too, like my last observation was that, a lot of men like to go out there and say that women don't really have rights and any rights you have are really just enforced and upheld by men. And that's the Force Doctrine and da-da-da-da-da. Well, even the men that are paid to uphold women's rights don't. That was the security guard, right? That was all the police officers that she had to tell them, this is your job. Like, do your job.
Do your fucking job.
God, I never related so much to anything when she was like, do your fucking job.
That's female rage. That's real female rage.
Yes,
the fact
like
that you
they really nailed
dismissed,
that.
not believed. Yeah. And the fact that like the first time when she goes to try to tell somebody about the serial killer, they send her to the janitor. Like, oh my fucking, that would have just, I would have let this.
I couldn't, yeah.
I would have set that set on fire. Like I would have set a fire and just not thought anything about it because burn that whole thing down. You're putting women in so much fucking danger, and they're obviously not vetting their show
contestants.
Yes,
exactly.
the contestants.
And that's
so,
still a problem to this day.
That is actually exemplified in Tinder. Tinder does not vet their users. So
even like reality shows to this day, like Love is Blind, have had like previous domestic violence, abusers on there. And there was a Love is Blind Argentina where one of the contestants tried to kill one of the women, like literally attempted murder. Yeah.
Okay,
so it's
I didn't
still
know
a
that.
problem
I don't watch reality
this
shows
day. To this day.
Yes, that's still like that's another thing I took away from the movie was the fact that all these things that those women are going through, we still face that. We're not being listened to or not being heard. The men that we have in our lives, they still dismiss us at every turn.
Nothing's changed.
Even though like by now there has been multiple documentations of incidents where, women have come forward and it's just like one big humiliation ritual. And there's just all these odds that are very much stacked against us, and they still refuse to see it because they're just dense like that. And so it's just like, man, like we still have so much work to do as feminists. And so that was another takeaway from the movie is the fact that nothing has changed. And the only thing maybe that has really changed, like materially, is the fact that the DNA evidence has gotten better. So it's less likely for serial killers to get away with certain crimes. Although they've just shifted focus where like they're targeting less, white women, and they're targeting more marginalized women. So women who are sex workers, Black women sex workers are more often than not targeted because we still have the Green River Killer as the one that comes to mind. Because I think that's the one that was in the documentary No Humans Involved, which I highly recommend that documentary because it goes on details about how the way serial killers have gotten away is because they're calculating with their victims because they know police will not prosecute a Black woman who goes missing, an Indigenous woman who goes missing, all these like marginalized women.
Or a sex worker.
Because
they don't consider sex worker people.
Humans. They don't consider sex workers humans. Yes.
That's why that title.
No human involved.
Yeah. And that's why he knew he could keep getting away with it. And shout out to where I fucking live. But yes, like it's literally people have found evidence of his like in the woods, like out behind their backyard. Like,
wait, this happened like kind of where you live?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had our own serial killer in Texas too. Which if our audience is listening and you're from Texas, we had the Texas Killing Field serial killer where he dumped the bodies like in between League City and Friendswood, and that area is still there today. And he allegedly, and I don't know for sure, took his victims by driving up and down 45, that dangerous highway, I think in between Pasadena and up to like North Houston is what they're saying. And he would just find women who were either disenfranchised or women who were sex workers and just like took them and killed them and dumped their bodies on.
That was the Green River Killer. Exact same thing.
Also, the Green River Killer.
Exact same thing. So yeah, really, really good stuff. Really great recommendation, y'all. Thank you so much. Like every time, we are like, I don't know, we have one of these poll winners. It's like, oh, is it going to be good? And it's like, y'all are always spot the F
Thank
on.
you.
Like, they're so good.
I'm glad I didn't waste my weekend.
Yes.
Like, this was a good watch.
Seriously, it was a really
And even if I
good
did,
watch.
like it would still make for good content to shit on a movie that we just absolutely hated. Because I'm always waiting to
We've
do
done
one of
that
those.
before. Yeah, we've done that before, and we'll do
Shout
it
out to
again.
Crumpets.
Yes, yes. If you want to see our Honora Rotten Tomatoes film review,
Our hot takes,
Yeah.
hot shit takes.
Yes, that is on our Crumpets. Okay. Well, let's wrap this up with some poll results, and then we'll give y'all our recommendation for the week, which I will probably toss to Gwen for those. Okay, so our poll was what triggers insecure men to crash out the hardest over successful women? And the options were A, being out-earned, her independence and self-reliance, her public recognition and praise, or the fear she will realize he's beneath her.
That one.
And that's the one that won on the Patreon. The one that won on our Spotify poll was that she would be independent, but it was a close second. Option D was a very close second, that she will realize he's beneath her. And I do think that's some of men's like biggest fear around these things, because they are almost explicitly taught that they're better than women. And so of course it like threatens their whole identity, their whole existence, to be told that like, oh, women are out earning you. Women are buying houses at a higher rate than you. Women are more educated than you.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
And it's like y'all had like a 200 plus years head start. And we only have had these rights for what? Less than 50, 60 years? Like,
and we don't have them now. So it's like,
some of them we don't have anymore.
Imagine being you. Like, damn, that sucks. That sucks. Yeah. So they can go cry about it for all I care. With that being said, our recommendation this week, Gwen, I'll toss to you for the...
Yeah. So I recommend the No Humans Involved documentary. I think you can still find it on YouTube, although I'm not quite... That's just where I saw it. And that was years ago. So if anything, I can find that link and put it down below for y'all so y'all can watch it. Chef's kiss. It is so good. And I want to go so much into detail about it, but we have so much time because like we kind of overran our tea time. So that's okay. And also, I'm going to also recommend the Tarjetas because those... Like the protesting doesn't stop protesting just because the protests ended. It should always be a continuous momentum. So if you stop just because, it was a one-day thing, then that sucks and you're a loser and you should shut the fuck up and never talk about politics again. But I think if you're smart and you know that these problems are going to continue on, so then the protesting should continue on. The resistance should continue on. The fact that our government is not going to stop doing these things, and it's the Constitution was written in ink, and it's not going to jump up and defend us. We have to defend it. We, the people, have to defend our own Constitution. That's what it was for. So it's not going to be this like arbitrary thing that's going to come up and save us from ourselves. It has to be us. And unfortunately, women, that means us. And I know we're so tired of all this like unpaid labor, but we got to pick this up because we all know it's not going to be the men. The men are not going to come to save us on this one. It will have to probably be us, and that sucks. But we got to suck it up. Buttercup.
Absolutely. And last little recommendation before we go, if anybody has a question for us or, something that y'all want us to talk about, like a real life problem that you're having and you want advice, we do have a mailbag. So please write in. It is mailbag@sirensound.co. Not .com. And so please make sure that you double check the address in the show notes before you hit send. That way it doesn't end up bouncing back to you and then you're confused. But yes, if you have any like a problem that you want help with or just want advice or just want like a listening ear or whatever, please write in. We love our mailbag segment.
Yeah, and just come spill the tea with us. Send in a voice note too. Those are always so funny. So I definitely appreciate voice notes. Definitely send us even if you're not VIP, just send us a voice note. I want to know what goes on in y'all's head when you listen to our podcast. So
and please send it to that mailbag address that I said. All right, well, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye.